Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. We are continuing our series here for the base class changes for spellcasting classes in the Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons 2024. Before I get started with that, all of these videos for the spellcasting base class changes are available in a playlist if you just kind of want to autoplay them through while you're doing something else. That'll be available either down in the description below, or you can find that on my channel page as well as the base class changes for the martial characters that was released 2 weeks ago, or all the subclass overviews for the martial classes that was available last week as well. This week is all about the spellcasting base class changes. And again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, but you keep clicking on my videos, and please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out quite a bit. But today, again, we're talking about the Druids. And Druids, again, I don't like to be a doom crier, but Druids, I think, have been kind of devastatingly diminished. Druids, I don't think they're still not a bad class by any means, but they've kind of made some changes that are a little questionable, I think. So let's go ahead and get started and see what I'm talking about. So starting with the core traits for the Druid, we're starting with weapons. They have access to simple weapon proficiency. This only results in them losing access to scimitars. Not really a big loss there. I'm not losing sleep over that. For the armor, they have proficiency in light armor and shields. They lost default access to medium armor as a class. And for starting equipment, just like every class in the 2024 Player's Handbook, whereas previously you had a choice of either two different kinds of equipments that you could choose from A and B. Now, option A is an equipment package, and then option B is starting wealth. It replaces the optional starting wealth from 2014. And generally, this is worth about the average roll that you could have rolled with your starting wealth in 2014. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's exactly average. Notably, Druids can still get medium armor proficiency and martial weapons, but it's now a separate choice that you make at level 1. And then for multi-class inheritance for the Druid, this is, again, is what you get when you take your first level in Druid from another class. You get their hit die, light armor, and shield proficiencies. You lost default access to medium armor, just like the Druid did, which is a little unfortunate. This makes the Cleric the only spellcasting class that gets anything beyond light armor as a base function of the class, which is a little unfortunate. Moving on to level 1, we have their spellcasting. So now you can replace any Druid cantrip with another Druid cantrip whenever you gain a level in Druid. Previously, you weren't able to change this, although there were optional rules that we were already probably playing with that allowed you to do that. This was either in Tasha's or Xanathar's, I can never remember which. And then you can prepare only 22 spells by level 20. Previously, this was 25 in 2014, assuming you had a +5 to wisdom, and then your Druid level was 20 as well. So small changes there. Yeah, I think you do get a little more access to more spells, especially from your subclass, but overall, just as the base class table goes, you have access to less spells, or you have access to prepare less spells. For the Druidic feature, this now grants Speak with Animals as an always prepared spell. So again, you get 22 spells at level 20, but then you have Speak with Animals always prepared as a 23rd spell, essentially. And there's now specific mechanics around leaving hidden messages in Druidic. So Druidic says you can use Druidic to leave hidden messages. You and others who know Druidic automatically spot such a message. Others spot messages' presence with a successful DC 15 intelligence investigation check, but can't decipher it without magic. I'm not sure what magic you would use, maybe like the comprehend languages or whatever, but those are the mechanics around using the Druidic messaging. So then we have Primal Order. This is a newish feature. It's kind of giving you access to things you already had access to before and kind of piecemealing them back to you. But you have two options and you choose one of them at level 1. You can either choose Magician. It says you know one extra cantrip from the Druid spell list. In addition, your mystical connection to nature gives you a bonus to your intelligence, arcana, or nature checks equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1. And then you have Warden. Trained for battle, you have proficiency with martial weapons and training with medium armor. So you can still get medium armor proficiency as a Druid and have access to martial weapons, but you specifically have to choose this Warden feature at level 1. I do like the idea of a martial Druid. I would love to see some subclasses like expand on that a little more. I know the Spores Druid was like semi-martial, but we'll see if they ever release anything more of a strictly martial-based Druid subclass in the future. We're going on to the Druid spell list changes for 2024. And again, this is just a comparison from the 2014 Player's Handbook to the 2024 Player's Handbook. So if you're in a position where you're playing 2024 rules forward, these are the spells that you now have access to that you didn't previously in the 2014 Player's Handbook. So for cantrips, we have Elementalism, Message, Spare the Dying, Starry Wisp, and Thunderclap. At level 1, you have Ice Knife and Protection from Evil and Good. At level 2, they added Aid, Augury, Continual Flame, Enlarge Reduce, and Summon Beast. Level 3 adds Aura of Vitality, Elemental Weapon, Revivify, and Summon Fae. Level 4 adds Charm Monster, Divination, Fire Shield, Fount of Moonlight, and Summon Elemental. Level 5 adds Cone of Cold. Level 6 adds Flesh to Stone. Level 7 adds Symbol. Level 8 adds Befuddlement, which is a rebranded Feeble Mind, as well as Incendiary Cloud. And then there's nothing added at level 9. So many of these spells, the ones that don't have asterisks next to them, are spells that were already available in Expanded Spell List and Xanathar's Guide to Everything and other supplemental materials. If there's things on the optional spell list from the Legacy base classes, DM permitting, you can still use them if you're using pre-2024 texts. But otherwise, these would be the spells that you have access to going from 2024 forward, in addition to the other spells on the base spell list for Druid. Moving on to level 2, we have Wild Shape. There's a lot of small changes to Wild Shape, so I think there's like the next 2 slides at least that are covering some changes. So the big changes here is that it can now be activated and deactivated as a bonus action. Previously, this was an action. You get only 1 use back on a short rest. Previously, you got both uses back on a short rest. However, you gain up to 3 uses at level 6, and then up to 4 uses at level 17, whereas previously you only ever had 2 uses of Wild Shape. Additionally, it also ends if you're incapacitated, whereas previously this was just unconscious. Notably, incapacitated is one of those conditions where some spells specifically incapacitate you, but some spells also cause conditions that also have the incapacitated condition baked into it. I don't know any. I think paralyzed might also incapacitate you. Stun, I believe, also incapacitates you. So there's a lot of different things that could potentially just knock you out of Wild Shape. The challenge rating limitations are the same. However, you now pick 4 different beast forms to know at level 2, and then you get up to 6 different beast forms that you know at level 4, and then up to 8 at level 5. So instead of just picking random beasts from the the monster manual or whatever it is, each time you cast Wild Shape, if you want to do something new, instead you can have a list of whatever beast shapes that you know, and those are the only shapes that you can transform into with Wild Shape. Beast forms can now have a swimming speed starting at level 2, whereas you couldn't do that until level 6, I think. I can't remember the exact one for it. You have no ability to replace forms that you knew previously. So again, you start with 4 beast forms that you know at level 4, and then when you get 2 more at level 4, you can't switch one of the older ones out for something that's maybe a little stronger, which would have been kind of a nice change that I wish they would have added. You do retain the ability to speak while in your Wild Shape, so you can be like a talking bear or whatever. You regain temporary hit points equal to your Druid level. Previously, you actually gained the actual hit points of that beast, and in 2024, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Druid level. This is different from taking the actual hit points of that beast. So temporary hit points equal to your Druid level. Again, at level 20, that's only 20 hit points. However, this does end the whole debate, and it wasn't really a debate, people were just wrong, around whether or not Power would kill a wild-shaped Druid, and whether or not they would still be alive if they changed back. The answer was yes, Power would kill always just outright killed the Druid, because it's not about having hit points, it's just that it kills you. If you have less than 100, you don't drop to 0, you just die, right? But now that discussion is kind of out the window, because as long as you have more than 100 base hit points without your temporary hit points, Power Word Kill can't kill you, even if you're in Wild Shape, because it's just temporary hit points. It's not actual hit points. You do keep your creature type, you keep your hit points, hit dice, mental ability scores, class features, languages, and feats, skill and saving throw proficiencies, and you use your proficiency bonus for them. You also gain proficiencies of the creature. So you keep your skill proficiencies, and then if the creature has other proficiencies, that being skills or saving throws, you can use them as well. And additionally, if they have a higher bonus in a skill or a saving throw than you, then you can choose to use their bonus instead of yours. And again, continuing with Wild Shape, the rules around spells and concentration, as well as interacting with objects and your equipment, is essentially the same. Interestingly, they removed the restriction that you can't use legendary or lair actions that the wild-shaped creature may have, though there aren't currently any such beasts that qualify for Wild Shape, even for Moon Druids. But if they were to release a legendary creature or a legendary beast in the future that has a low enough CR that you could Wild Shape into it, or even just a beast that has a lair actions for whatever reason, and you have a lair and you're in their lair, technically you could use them. They don't have it now, but if they ever do that in the future, then that's something that they just kind of opened up. The health changes are a small nerf to CR1 beasts when you are able to choose CR1 beasts. But it's a buff to most forms with a lower CR. So like your 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, or 0 CR beasts. The the temporary hit points you get as your Druid level will be higher than that at level 20. I don't know that the number of uses is something that needed changing or fixing. I think early on this might feel a little rough, although you do get 1 back on a short rest, but you used to get 2 back. You used to get both of your wild shapes back on a short rest. So before you get your 3rd and up again, eventually 4th feature up at like level 17, I think it was, it's going to feel maybe a little slow going on the wild shapes. It's kind of a really weird change, that I think, in my opinion. And again, the temp HP versus real HP solves a lot of quote-unquote problems with the 2014 rules, such as the power word kill debate. But this overall is just weaker because now you can't stack temp HP on top of your wild shape form from other features. Until you lose your wild shape temporary HP, you can't gain, I mean, you technically can gain temporary HP from other sources, but if it's not higher than what your current temporary HP is from wild shape, then you don't want to take it, right? Having to select certain forms is just another limitation, and we aren't able to switch them out rules as written. That's probably something that I've let people do at my table. I think it does make it easier to just have these stat blocks kind of on hand so you don't have to look things up all the time. But I wish they would have made this a little more flexible for the Druids. Moving on to more level 2 features, there's Wild Companion. This is a new feature that's borrowed from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It allows you to expend a use of Wild Shape or a spell slot to cast the Find Familiar spell as an action without material components. When you cast the spell this way, the creature type is a Fae. Normally you can choose certain creature types with Find Familiar, but in this case it is a Fae, and it disappears when you finish a long rest. It does not continue through the long rest. So notably, this, again, you are casting this as an action. You don't, because normally Find Familiar is 1 minute long, or ritual casting for 10 minutes or whatever, or 11 minutes technically. But you are specifically using a magic action. It is your action to cast Find Familiar, and you don't need your material components. So Druid is the best class at using Find Familiar just because they can do it basically. They still have to expend their spell slot or their wild shape, but they don't have to expend material components to do it for people who keep track of material components for Find Familiar. Moving on to level 3, we have the subclass choice. This is now available at level 3, down from level 2. And again, the general guidance for adapting pre-2024 Druid subclasses to the 2024 class structure is simply to push the subclass choice to level 3. All the other Druid subclass features come online at the same levels as it did in 2014. At level 5, we have Wild Resurgence. This is a new feature. It allows you to use spell slots to regain a use of wild shape. So whereas you don't get all your wild shapes back on a short rest like you did in 2014, you can now use extra spell slots to regain a use of wild shape if you need to in a pinch. You can also burn a wild shape to gain a level 1 spell slot once per long rest. The Druid has they don't have a way to get spell slots back outside of this feature. They don't have like an arcane recovery type feature to get more spell slots. They don't have the sorcerer's ability to turn their sorcery points into more spell slots. So I don't know how often, at least as a non-moon Druid, that you might be burning a spell slot to get uses of wild shape back, although it is any level spell slot. So definitely when you get up to higher levels and you're not really using your level 1 spell slot as much, you might burn those to get your use of wild shape back, depending on what your subclass use of wild shape is. So this is probably better once we look at the subclasses and see what kind of different features they're using their wild shapes for. At level 7, we have Elemental Fury. Again, this is a brand new feature. It gives you a choice of adding your Wisdom modifier to your cantrip damage or dealing an extra 1d8 damage when dealing damage with a weapon or a wild shape attack. So this is very similar to the Divine Strike or Potent Cantrip for the Cleric. Potent spellcasting, you add your Wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any Druid cantrip, or you choose Primal Strike and you deal an extra damage of Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder damage when you hit. Again, very, very similar to the Cleric feature, but it's a nice little thing to add on. At level 15, we have Improved Elemental Fury. Again, brand new feature. The Druid has a lot of just new features that have been added to the class, trying to make up for all the weird changes to wild shape. So this gives you a choice of increasing cantrip damage for cantrips with a range of 10 feet or greater to 300 feet, or you deal 2d8 extra damage instead of 1d8 on weapon attacks or wild shape attacks. For potent spellcasting, I think Thorn Whip is kind of a funny use of it. Again, at 300 feet on any cantrip is not bad, but I think Thorn Whip, because it pulls them closer to you, it could possibly have some funny implications that you could do from 300 feet away. Moving on to level 18, we have Beast Spells. So this is the feature that allows you to cast spells while in wild shape, but it now also allows you to cast spells with a material component, provided that the component isn't consumed or has a cost listed in the spell. This was previously part of the Archdruid feature in 2014 at the level 20 capstone, so that has been moved up to level 18 and baked into the Beast Spells feature. However, the timeless body, that feature that was available at level 18 for the Druid, that was removed, and then it was baked into the Archdruid feature at level 20. Moving on to level 19, we have the epic boons. This is when epic boons are unlocked. And again, this is not tied to the base class level 19. You don't have to be level 19 in a single class to unlock epic boons. Epic boons just have a prerequisite of level 19. So for example, you are a level 15 Druid and a level 3 Ranger. You can take your 16th level in Druid where you get a feat unlocked at that level. And since you are character level 19, you can choose epic boons from the spell list, or you can choose epic boons from the feats, or you can just be level 19 in a single class. You also get a feat unlocked at that level, and then you can choose an epic boon. Moving on to level 20, we have the Capstone of Archdruid. Previously, this is what allowed you to have infinite uses of Wild Shape, but now instead, whenever you roll initiative, if you have no uses of Wild Shape left, you regain 1 expended use of it. So again, much like the other features that work this way, if you wanted to sort of cheese it a little bit, and you're just like in town during some downtime, but you have no uses of Wild Shape left, you can maybe like start a fight with a commoner, but then just kind of back out of combat once you roll initiative to get your use of Wild Shape back. Don't do that too much, or your DM might put a stop to it, but just a little cheeky thing you can do. It also gives you Nature Magician. It allows you to convert uses of Wild Shape into spell slots at a 2-to-1 ratio. So 1 Wild Shape can grant up to a 2nd level spell slot, or you can expend 2 uses of Wild Shape for a 4th level spell slot, and so forth. But you can only do this once per long rest. And this also, like I said earlier, it grants the same benefits as Timeless Body in 2014, which was previously at level 18, but now it's at level 20, and it's called Longevity instead of Timeless Body. Moving on to the Druid class summary, we see probably the most red that we've seen on any class. So again, their weapon proficiencies were kind of nerfed, although you can pick up the martial weapon proficiencies in that Druidic order feature. Armor was nerfed kind of because you can still pick up medium armor proficiency in that Druidic order if you choose the martial one that gives you the armor proficiency and the weapon proficiency. But a spellcasting Druid is not going to have the armor that they did before. Primal Order is a buff, kind of, because again, it's just making up for the nerfs to the weapons and the armor. Spellcasting is, again, a little bit nerfed because you can prepare less spells. Oh no, Wild Shape again was nerfed. It's easier to use, but it's kind of mechanically less powerful in a lot of ways. Subclass choice, again, that was pushed to level 3 from level 2. This only really hurts multiclassing. It doesn't hurt a pure classed Druid. Wild Resurgence is a buff. Elemental Fury, improved Elemental Fury. There's a lot of buffs here. Timeless Body was kind of nerfed in the sense that it comes 2 levels later. Archdruid was nerfed in the sense that you no longer have infinite uses of Wild Shape, although you technically do, again, if you cheese it with your Bag of Rats and get an initiative and get that use of Wild Shape back. And again, I think Archdruid is probably fine in practice, but going from unlimited Wild Shapes to limited Wild Shapes is, it is just a nerfed. Like, you can't call it anything different. So let me know what you think about the Druid in 2024. Am I too harsh on it here? The Primal Order, again, makes up for the weapons and armor nerf, but I think the base class not having access to the medium armor is a little weird. Technically, the medium armor whole debate about can you use armor that has metal on it, you can do that now in 2024. They removed that text as well. I forgot to mention that. And again, while you're going down to those comments, please hit that like button. If you're continuing to watch these videos and you get to the end and hear me rambling like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button because you're obviously sticking around for some reason. I think we're going to cover it's Bard, Cleric, Druid. Would it be the Sorcerer next, I believe? Yeah, the Sorcerer would be coming next. So I appreciate your guys' time, and I'll see you in the next one.